People will call any Pokemon plush a Pokemon doll, but that makes this Pikachu kind of sad because this is a Pokemon doll, and this one, not so much. So, what is a Pokemon doll? Where do they come from? And why does this specific niche of Pokemon collectors sometimes spend over $100 on just one? So let's explore the history of these adorable plush and evolve our understanding of what it truly means to be a Pokemon doll. This is my first long-form video here on YouTube, so let's get to know each other in the comments a little bit. Let me know what your favorite Pokemon is, and if you want to support me, be sure to like and subscribe. Pokemon dolls are a specific line of plush produced and sold by the Pokemon Company that have a very distinct chibi-like aesthetic. They're designed to be extra round, soft, and have oversized heads with tiny little bodies. Now here's where the confusion comes in. Not every Pokemon plush is a Pokemon doll. The Pokemon Company licenses other companies to produce plush like Squishmallows from Jazzwares, and Pokémon Center releases all kinds of plush lines like standard Pokémon Center plush, sitting Cuties, Soda Pop, and even massive life-size ones like this Psyduck. But Pokemon dolls have always had their own unique look and branding. Before Pokemon dolls existed as plush, we first saw something called a Poké Doll in the games. In Pokemon Red and Blue, the Poké Doll was an item you could buy in Pokémarts and use to escape wild Pokemon battles. If used in the fight against the Marowak Ghost in Pokemon Tower in Lavender Town, you can use the Poké Doll to cheat past it instead of getting the Sylph Scope from Team Rocket, which makes it a perfect skip for speedrunning. After Red and Blue, players had the opportunity to decorate their room at home in Gold and Silver or secret bases in Ruby and Sapphire with Pokemon dolls, but the biggest representation of Pokemon dolls as decorations existed during Black and White through a now defunct website known as the Dream World, where you could catch Pokemon with their hidden abilities, plant berries, and decorate your own house with over 100 different Pokemon dolls that were obtainable through promotional events or trading your berries that you grew. Many of the Pokemon dolls that were featured here also exist in real life, but there are several that don't currently, like Sudowoodo, Ludicolo, Gardevoir, Gulpin, Cacnea, and Snorunt. The first iteration of Pokemon dolls in the real world were known as PlushPlush. Released exclusively in Japan in 2001, these were the first official plush released in this chibi style. They had a very limited selection featuring Pokemon from generations 1 and 2 like Charmander and Celebi. The biggest differences between PlushPlush and Pokemon dolls is that PlushPlush feature plastic eyes and are made with a velvety material. All PlushPlush except for Oddish, Porygon 2, and Larvitar have been re-released as Pokemon dolls. Poké Dolls were first introduced in 2002 and rebranded as Pokemon Dolls in 2018, with new ones still being sold today. Original Pokemon dolls were produced with Balboa fabric, which is soft but has a slightly rougher feel compared to modern plush. They transitioned to a minky fabric in the late 2000s, which is way smoother, fluffier, and generally more huggable. If you pick up an older Pokemon doll and compare it to a newer one, you'll notice the difference immediately. Before we had the convenience of ordering stuff straight from PokemonCenter.com, tracking Pokemon dolls down was a bit more of an adventure. And depending on where you lived, getting your hands on one could be as rare as finding a Feebas in Ruby and Sapphire. One of the most unique ways to buy Pokemon dolls was through Pokemon Center vending machines. Here's a picture of me and my little brother standing in front of one about 10 years ago. These were actual vending machines filled with plush. These were exclusive to Washington State, which makes sense because that's where the Pokemon Company International is headquartered. If you live nearby, you could literally grab a Pokemon doll like you were getting a soda. New York was also a prime location thanks to Pokemon Center New York, which operated from 2001 to 2005 before transforming into Nintendo World and now Nintendo New York. PCNY was the spot for Pokemon merchandise, including Meowth and Clefairy Pokemon dolls, which are two that never even saw a release in Japan. Huge shout out to Julie, known as 2Lavelle on social media, for preserving the history of Pokemon Center New York. If you want to dive even deeper into PCNY history, definitely check out her website in the description. And for some reason, you could also find Pokemon dolls at certain stores in Disney World's Epcot, specifically in the Japan section. Why? I have no idea, but if you're lucky enough, you could pick up a Pokemon doll alongside your Mickey ears. If you're picking up your first Pokemon doll, different generations of Pokemon dolls can be determined by their hang tags. Early Pokemon dolls had red tags that featured an image of Pikachu in the Pokemon doll art style. If the tag has been removed, the name of the specific Pokemon doll it belongs to can be found on the back. As Pokemon dolls continued to be produced, we started seeing more stylized hang tags featuring specific Pokemon doll art for each corresponding Pokemon. Japan's Pokemon dolls often featured different hang tag designs compared to international releases. The current Japanese tag is this one, while international releases feature these. Previous Japanese tags feature a blue or red sunburst or this red spiral tag that started to be used during X and Y's debut. Previous international tags include this rounded rectangular tag. This black and white tag was used during the black and white era. 2014 to 2017 saw these modernized tags. And then after the rebranding from Poké Dolls to Pokemon Dolls in 2018, a similar tag like the current Japanese tags started to be used until they were retired in 2020 for these current ones devoid of any personality. Here we have Shinx to give us a comparison of a Pokemon doll versus a sitting cutie. Pokemon dolls are very round and chibi in style, while sitting cuties are very accurate to the Pokemon design itself. Older Pokemon dolls, both in Japan and internationally, feature this red hang tag with Pikachu on it up until 2010. If they have this S sticker, or this one with Japanese text, on the inside of their tush tag, this usually confirms their legitimacy. The international Zoroark Pokemon doll was released with an incorrect tag and never fixed even upon re-releases. Standard Pokemon Plush were defined with plush printed on the hang tag, while Pokemon dolls had Poké Doll in specific art. Shiny Pokemon tend not to be acknowledged through merch, especially plush, so this shiny Genesect is pretty special. The only other shiny Pokemon doll variants that exist are Suicune, Raikou, and Entei. Meloetta is one of the few Pokemon that have multiple versions of a Pokemon doll because they have different forms. Pokemon like Deoxys, Shaman, and Keldeo have this in common, but also Spinda, referencing the 4,294,967,296 different variations you can find in the games. Lugia is also here because a Shadow Lugia Pokemon doll also exists. Speaking of multiple versions, some Pokemon dolls get redesigned upon their re-releases, like Darkrai for example. I have the 2010 and the 2014 release, and I think you can assume which one I prefer. I own both because Darkrai is one of my favorite Pokemon. Here are some other comparisons like Espeon and Sylveon. Pokemon dolls also come in a variety of sizes. There are keychain Pokemon dolls. These are miniature versions about 3 to 4 inches tall, typically with a keyring or strap attached, so you can clip them to your bag, keys, or even display them on a wall. Standard Pokemon dolls usually stand around 5 to 6 inches tall. These are the ones most people think of when they hear Pokemon dolls, and they've been a staple of Pokémon Center for years. XL Pokemon dolls are sometimes released to showcase a final evolution like Chestnut, or a legendary Pokemon like Reshiram, and they're a bit bigger than standard Pokemon dolls. DX Pokemon dolls are a larger version of the standard ones, usually around 8 to 10 inches tall, sometimes even bigger. They keep the same proportions but often have softer materials. These tend to be more limited in selection and are sometimes exclusive to certain regions or events. I personally don't have any of these, but the Secret Base Pokemon dolls were a special line to celebrate the release of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and mimic the Pokemon dolls you could decorate your secret base with. I also want to give a shout out to the derpiest Pokemon dolls in my opinion. We have Totodile and Groudon. Just look at them. Among all of these, some of my personal favorites are Whimsicott, Poliwhirl, and Esper. Whimsicott just embodies pure fluff energy. Poliwhirl has that classic nostalgic appeal, and Esper has accompanied me on many trips, so I've sort of formed kind of a bond with it. Some Pokemon dolls have become insanely rare over the years. Certain releases like Meowth and Clefairy Pokemon dolls can go for hundreds of dollars in the secondhand market. The most expensive Pokemon doll I have purchased secondhand is this Wailord Pokemon doll for over $100. If we flip over to the back, this is how much it originally cost if I had bought it at Nintendo World when it originally released. So you found what looks like an amazing deal online, a Pokemon doll for just a few bucks on eBay. Sounds great, right? Well, not really. Bootleg Pokemon dolls are everywhere, especially online, and while they might seem like a harmless alternative, buying them supports
illegal activity.
Eevee and its evolutions are the most popular in bootlegged Pokemon dolls, and Umbreon is actually what started my collection because I received a bootleg and wanted to become more informed. I was thinking that we would begin to see less bootlegs with the redesign of the Evolution Pokemon dolls, but there are also bootlegs of the redesigns now. A legit Umbreon Pokemon doll isn't going to be $5. Pokemon dolls hold their value well, so if the price seems unbelievably low, it's probably a bootleg. If you're still not sure, check out resources like Pokemon Plush Project to compare the listings to official images. If the seller's other items have lumpy faces or weird proportions, it's probably not legit. Bootlegs might be tempting, but they're illegal, lower quality, and they hurt the creators behind the real thing. If you want something truly unique and special, I recommend commissioning a plush artist or just buying directly from Pokémon Center. Support the people who make these plush possible, not the ones stealing their work. Now that we've taken a deep dive into the history of Pokemon dolls, I hope you have a better understanding. Pokemon dolls are more than just plush toys, they're a tangible piece of the Pokemon world. For me, Pokemon dolls are a wonderful representation of my favorite game come to life. They allow me to hold on to the nostalgia, creativity, and charm that make Pokemon so special. Do you have any Pokemon dolls in your collection, or maybe now you're wondering what Pokemon have a Pokemon doll? Let me know in the comments. If you're here to the end, consider pressing the like button and subscribing, and if you want to see what I'm doing next, follow me on Blue Sky and Twitch, and I also have a Discord server. Goodbye. Hey guys, when one video ends, just click on another one. It's called binge viewing. Go ahead, I support you. Did they do it yet?